Okay, what happened then, ma'am?
My mom, she's dead, I think. I don't know.
What happened?
Help me.
Hello? What happened?
Linda Stein, a well-known realtor and music manager, was found dead in her apartment on October 30th, 2007. Her daughter Mandy Stein had left the apartment early in the morning to work on her latest project as a producer, but when she returned, the daughter was faced with an unthinkable, horrific scene. Linda Stein began climbing the ladder early in life. Friends and family would often describe her as a rebel, always moving to push the boundaries as far as she could. Linda's ventures began when she met music executive Seymour Stein, the president of Sire Records and vice president of Warner Brothers Records. Seymour and Linda would marry in 1971, allowing Linda the opportunity to leave her small-time teaching position to become the co-manager of the infamous band The Ramones. In 1979, Seymour and Linda divorced for unknown circumstances, though the two did leave on civil terms with each other. In the early 1980s, Linda went on to find her new career passion, real estate, but little did she know that this decision would lead to her eventual murder.
And then she takes another pull, and then I turn, and then she blows it. So when I'm about to say something, it just goes deep within. So I'm like, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, just give me, a minute. Because stuff was just not, seeming right at the time. And I was like, just give me a minute. I just get up, go on the couch, She was like, so she's standing in front of me. So she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Still smoking. Still blowing the smoke in my face. So I was like, Linda, please, I just need 10 minutes. That's it. I was like, I don't feel good right now. I was like, I think it's from a contact, So fucking what? And then she's just like, fuck this, fuck that, And then she was like, what are you, stuck on stupid? But this is like funny to her. And she doesn't look the same to me. Because it's like now my mind is like in shutdown mode,
One thing to understand about Linda Stein was, despite many friends referring to her as a joy to be around, many would say the opposite. Linda was more than well known to be brash and profane. Linda was a take nothing, give nothing type of woman. Natavia Lowry, on the other hand, was different. Natavia grew up in the neighborhoods of Brooklyn, New York, and her only goal in life was to have a good time. Natavia supported this lifestyle with small-time gifts from friends, family, schoolmates, and even a church. She supported this lifestyle by telling people exactly what they needed to hear. Natavia met Linda when she was hired to be Linda's personal assistant, and before you knew it, Natavia and Linda began butting heads.
Just looked like really evil. She didn't look like the person I work with. She didn't look like Linda that never yells at me, And then she had like her it's like a wooden baton type thing,
Is it made of wood or some other material?
It's wood.
Okay. And what is it used for?
Yoga, she goes for a walk.
Okay, and can you describe it to me?
It's like, I don't know if you ever see the people do yoga. They put it on their shoulders, they stretch, they turn. It looks like a king.
And how long is it about?
Probably like the length of a king, but without that hook.
The hook? Okay, can you just show me with your hands the best of your ability?
It's probably like, well, it's actually, probably like this thick. And it's probably like this long, because it can go on your shoulder.
Okay.
You can hold it like this.
For someone who just committed a gruesome crime, Natavia explains the events leading up to the murder and even the murder weapon with eerie calmness. Her tone is even, but in certain areas of her explanation, Natavia becomes very matter-of-fact with the detective. Natavia is showing multiple signs of classic narcissism. She appears to be detached from the situation and does not feel as though she has done something wrong.
It's like, I don't let her buy my lunch, I buy my lunch, And so she was like, that's the first I hear somebody black saving their money. So she's like waving a cane and stuff at me. Then it's like, I don't know, like after that remark and stuff, and you know, her screaming and yelling, I just snatched it from her. But she kind of like, you know how you like brush somebody off, like, you know, fuck you, you know, like, who cares? You
Not
know,
taking you seriously.
right.
Yes.
So I took it and it's like, I just hit her with it. And I did it like a couple more times.
On her head. After the first time she fell, and then you continued to hit her on the head with the stick.
Yes.
Do you know how many times you hit her?
That wasn't myself. I can't count.
Were you feeling very angry towards her?
I was mad. I was confused. I was angry, paranoid. It was like a feeling like I never had before.
For 14 hours, Natavia was in police custody in downtown Manhattan. The NYPD questioned Natavia for several hours, but according to officials, the detectives conducting the interview failed to record the interrogation. Instead, the detectives decided to only record Natavia's confession. The confession video was vigorously cross-examined by detectives about how Natavia came to confess. During her time at the police station, Natavia was denied her phone call and was told repeatedly she had already called her mother. Lawyer John Christie persuaded Detective Rivera to concede that Natavia was in custody for over 14 hours and was only allowed to call her mother after the videotaped confession. By this point, Natavia would be hungry, tired, and frazzled. Investigators are allowed to coerce confessions out of their suspects, but only within certain boundaries. Detectives are not allowed to deceive the suspect, nor deny them their basic rights. In this situation, detectives are trying to push Natavia into an emotional state of mind in order to get an unwavering confession from the woman.
It was like, it felt like she was like my worst enemy, you know? I think I just like, you know, hit her 6 times. And then I stood up and I was like in total shock. I just sat there. I called her name so many times. I shook her so many times.
In the years prior to working for Stein, Natavia had been charged with multiple crimes: misdemeanor identity theft, petty larceny, and stealing from a church. Though the victims referred to Natavia as a pathological liar and thief, she was never convicted of a crime. Despite having a windfall job, Natavia was deeply in debt and newly pregnant. Her theft slowly became more brazen, going as far as to calling banks and debt collection agencies pretending to be Linda. It was no secret that Linda Stein was a wealthy woman, and being her personal assistant, Natavia had access to Linda's bank accounts, credit cards, and more. For months, Natavia had been stealing money from her boss, over $10,000 worth. When Linda found out about this, she didn't report Natavia to the police. Instead, being the brash and strong-headed woman she is, Linda wanted to confront Natavia face to face.
My intentions weren't to hurt her at all. I stood there for a while. I closed my eyes a couple times, thinking, okay, you know, if I open it, she would just be coming out of the bathroom, sucking through her hair, you know. I rinse off the object.
Where?
In the kitchen sink.
What did it have on it? What were you rinsing off?
It was blood.
Natavia refused to name the murder weapon towards the end of her confession. She also did not want to admit that there was blood on the yoga stick that she rinsed off. This could be because she has finally come to terms with the reality of her crime, or she is trying to piece together a fictional story. Keep in mind, Natavia had been in police custody for several hours, denied her phone call, and perhaps much more. Despite these factors, Natavia had mostly kept her cool up until this point, showing minimal emotion. Before leaving Stein's apartment, Natavia turned her pants inside out in order to hide the bloodstains that riddled the fabric. It's reported that Natavia hit Linda in the head 24 times. Natavia had also taken Linda's debit card as she was leaving and went straight to an ATM, withdrawing $800. In an effort to cover her tracks, Natavia ran errands for Linda, went to lunch with a co-worker, answered phone calls, and even left a message for her boss and members of Stein's family in the hours after Linda's death. Supreme Court Justice Richard Carruthers spoke at Natavia's hearing, citing that her actions were uncommon and almost inhuman.
Hey, Linda, it's Natavia. Just want to let you know that I'm leaving work at 5:30. Hopefully the walk in the park was actually good. I left everything upstairs at the door, and Seymour called.
Unfortunately for Natavia, she was caught red-handed entering and leaving Stein's residence on tape, putting her there at the time of Stein's death. During her trial, Natavia pled not guilty, citing that her confession was coerced and not at all the real deal. Even with this plea, the jury found her guilty for the murder of Linda Stein. Members of the Lowry family repeatedly had outbursts in the courtroom. Natavia's father was faced with a criminal contempt charge after denouncing Carruthers for refusing to let Natavia change lawyers. During one court date, one of Natavia's relatives went as far as to accusing Mandy Stein, Linda's youngest child, of committing the crime. Carruthers also refused rulings that would allow jurors to see Natavia's recanted confession and limited other potential evidence or professional witnesses, including a psychologist whose expertise would shine light onto why people falsely confess to crimes they are faced with. Natavia is currently serving 32 years to life in prison, but is pushing for a fair trial.